So, welcome back, Internet, to another episode of Titancraft, in which I cackle maniacally about how my nether tunnel is finally done! I mean, it's not. You can see that I still haven't put in the ground cover, but the part that has been driving me insane of slowly expanding my leaves on along, tree by tree by tree, and never feeling like I've made any progress, is over, because it is provable that I have made progress. The leaves now reach out into the end of the tunnel. Spring has reached. Yep. And now that I'm no longer withering my sanity, trying to put in the leaf cover, and Halloween's over, it might be time to return to my normal skin. And I'm back to having my normal skin again. Here for November, where we give thanks for projects actually finishing and to this lovely server for existing. And I'm going to handle most of the lower ground cover stuff as a time-lapse as well. But I'm just going to fly through this area that I have covered in leaves, or bounce run on through, just so that you can see how long it's been and how much of an epic project it's been. And then you'll get to have two back-to-back time-lapses. Time-lapse 1, showing the project of leafing it up, and time-lapse 2, the project of ground covering it up. Now, I have nowhere near enough narration to cover the entirety of my time lapses, but I may as well monologue about what I got up to and my process before fading into soothing music as we move on along through this slow pan along my tunnel, watching leaf blocks get placed. Now, my process hasn't quite been consistent along the nether tunnel. I believe I've shown it earlier in some of the earlier videos, and I don't think I'm quite doing it the same. However, I have been relatively consistent about a couple of the things, like mixing up the different types of leaf blocks to give a greater impression of depth in the trees, partially because it helps to block out more of the cobblestone, because the leaf textures don't line up perfectly, and so more of the surface behind them is obscured. It also helps to give an impression of depth because Minecraft has a tendency to, when you're layering the entire same block, not have as effective as, say, layering two different blocks or layering block, air, block. This is the same thing that sort of works for the glass trick, where you use glass, air, glass to create a very fog effect, whereas if you just have a solid block of glass, it ends up looking about as deep as a single layer of glass, regardless of how deep you make that glass. So mixing up the different types of leaves creates more of the interface layers between varying types of transparent blocks. It also just helps to give the tunnel a bit more dynamicness and make all of the trees look a bit more wild and chaotic, which they really need given that there is no sane order in this tunnel, and there are no rules. And also, because without that, it becomes a bit more obvious that, in fact, there are a few rules here, or there are certain patterns of laziness I fell into while making this. Like a tendency for a bunch of the trees and their leaf covers to fit in approximately a 3x3 cube around the trunk. of a tree, and and a bunch of the times where I go through and correct it afterwards, it's because I realized that I had fallen into that trap and had to fix it. It was also a nightmare and a half trying to scaffold up to work on this, given that I've spawn-proofed most of my road by virtue of having it be intermittent heights, so no valid spots where I'm able to place scaffolding on the main road. And some of the pans here don't quite line up properly, or seem a little weird, because when I was busy filming this, there were occasionally sections where I was just zipping back on or up through the tunnel with no regard for how it was going to be a nightmare trying to track this later. And now for time-lapse music. And strictly speaking, there's still a little more of the upper leaves to go before we hit my ground cover section. But I feel like I can start that ramble a little bit early because everyone loves hearing my voice. Or maybe you guys don't, but I can pretend, can't I? Internet, do you like me? So, as for the ground cover section of it, it's mostly me putting in more leaves and just trying to make sure that nothing's valid for spawning, so stone buttons, leaves, amethyst crystals, bamboo shoots. I started mixing in the azalea bushes on this section of the lower ground cover. I'm also putting in some of my hanging nether vines in and around this section. And the growing nether vines are included as well. Partway through, I run off because I got struck by inspiration and decided it needed more wither roses. There are no wither roses in the first half of my tunnel, but there are wither roses in the second half of my tunnel. And, frankly, I feel both halves work, and I feel like they still work together reasonably well, because there's no distinct slice where it's obviously different on one side compared to the other, given that I was very much mimicking the style through the entire way, and we've got about 5 different slices where I change things up. I've generally been putting more of the amethyst crystals on the mycelium and more of the bright overgrown bamboo and roses on the moss. The leaf cover, both dead leaves, or both oak leaves to give the very dead, dry look, and flowering azalea to look like little flower bushes down at the ground level, have been put in anywhere where it sort of feels like it fits. And some of the bright, awkward white flashes there are me running to get things from the overworld, most of which has been get more stone, because I keep not having enough stone with me to make all of the stone buttons I need. Please ignore the fact that the replay mod allows you to occasionally see through walls. And back to our music. thanks for watching. Hope to see you all in the next episode. It's been a blast. And with this, I am now at 2 out of 5 of my season goals complete. 3 more to go.